I'm Graham Jeffrey. I'm from the University of the West of Scotland. I mean, I think what interested me about the seminar was the opportunity to bring together an interesting group of people from different sectors. There's a nice invitation list which incorporates academics and civil servants and practitioners and activists, and it's actually still quite rare to get that kind of group of people in a room to kind of have a dialogue, and I think that's what we're beginning to do. I think we probably need about 3 days to do this properly. It's felt a little bit compressed. We've been kind of one thing then the next to the next, but I'm sure it will be productive, and I'm sure a lot of people what's been interesting is that the presentations have been a good stimulus for kind of further reflection and further conversation.
How have the presentations informed the question that's been asked of us around challenging neighbourhoods and changing and making things better, or stopping doing things altogether?
Well, we've seen a lot of examples of different sorts of practice, mainly which has been about people from institutions like universities or government, I guess, doing this thing called engagement. And I suppose one of the things that in our conversation we're trying to unpick is, what about just actually listening to the experiences of people who are actually having regeneration done to them, who are at the sharp end of policy? I mean, in the break, we were saying one of the interesting things, as a middle-class person, it's quite unusual for a local authority official to come to my neighbourhood and say, your home's going to be demolished, or your neighbourhood's been designated as challenging, and therefore we're reorganising it. And then if you're middle class, then everyone kind of mobilises and phones up their mate who works at the council and does stuff about that. But for other sorts of communities who don't necessarily have those advantages, it's quite a common experience to be subject to various forms of state intervention, whether that's social work intervention or the police or housing. And so there's that sense of, well, how do people then begin to speak back? How do they begin to have a way? I mean, clearly you could say, well, they've got representation, there's a democratic process, they speak to their elected representatives, they have councillors. But of course that's not a straightforward process if maybe you're living in a situation of some kind of precariousness. So I'm aware of that. I mean, people talk about engagement, but it has to be a two-way conversation. It has to be a conversation where people in power are seriously willing to listen to and engage with voices that actually might be quite uncomfortable for them.
So how do we create that situation, create that change where those sorts of processes actually happen?
But I think you're seeing a lot of different examples of that through the day. So we're hearing of stories of sort of filmmaking projects or art projects or zines or publication projects. I mean, I've got a long history of thinking and researching about community media, and things like radio and citizen journalism can allow people a platform to tell stories in different ways. But I think fundamentally you've got to have a shift in attitude. I mean, it was very heartening to hear the person from the DCLG talk about the idea of open policy making and collaborative policy making. I'm sure he's highly committed to it. I wonder whether his political masters really are, and I wonder how far that really extends. I think you have to really think carefully about how people might engage in thinking about and affecting what goes on in their neighbourhood.
Resources and distribution resources.
More. I mean, it's all very well talking about everybody's got to do more for less and all of the time, but again, you come down to the point that if you are totally unresourced, you're constantly in a kind of a crisis management mode. It becomes extremely difficult to find a way of sustaining yourself. It's harder to think creatively. As a colleague a number of years ago said to me, it's much easier to take risks when you've got money in the bank. And I think that's probably true. I think there are two modes of risk taking. One is you take risks because you've got no money in the bank and there's nothing else to do. Therefore, you just have to take a leap in the dark. You think about refugee situations and you think about how people are just forced into a situation where it's do or die. Or the other alternative is you need to be in a position of being reasonably well resourced so that you can take a calculated risk and you can find a way of thinking about things differently. But without resources, and then there needs to be the incentive resources. I mean, if you think about, we're hearing a lot today about communities, neighbourhoods, local government, different services coming together, working in different ways together, that has to be incentivized. There has to be a reason why people would want to do that. Therefore, government, not just government, but government clearly has a role in providing those incentives, providing those frameworks where that might happen.
I was going to ask what's next, but in a sense you've done it by answering the resource question.
Good.
Is there any last comments you'd care to make?
I think it's this constant sense of this large disconnect between what people call the world of policy and planning and the experience of people's everyday lives. And what I think one of the things that research, some of the people involved in this project, what would be nice would be to try and bring together these worlds through these sorts of projects in ways that people on different sides of the divide can begin to understand what the experience of everyday life is in the so-called challenging neighbourhoods that are being described. And the more people can understand what everyday experience is like in those neighbourhoods and how people are actually living, the better the policy will be. If the policy is always kind of based on someone else's imagination of what it's like and it's not rooted in the lived experience of the neighbourhood, you're going to end up with some dodgy policy.